Should I be talking to anyone from security? You guys are just here? Okay. Anyway, we're just going to wait for people. Hi there. Did you want to talk about this claim? No? You're welcome to participate. We're not going to lay out the maths yet because people aren't here. It's supposed to be 1 o'clock that we're going to be starting, but it's just a question. So you probably have different views on it. You have any views? Pardon?
I was in the day school. My dad was a residential school survivor. All this whole family was. And there was reports. I had an ex-co-worker. Babies were incinerated. And you call that a fucking hoax? Bullshit.
Well, that's not what the hoax is about. The hoax is about the Kamloops case. So, and the incineration, that's something that has to be challenged.
Why?
Because there's no evidence that babies...
No evidence. No evidence.
Fucking liars? What the
So,
fuck are you?
so all of our survivors that are saying that, you're calling them liars to their face.
You know, I don't think they're lying.
So then what is it then? If they're not, if you're challenging what's being happened or what has happened, then what are you saying?
Have you heard about the Satanic Panic?
Oh, for fuck's sake.
It's the Satanic Panic, a similar thing happened.
The shit that was disproven in the 80s.
Yes.
The shit that was disproven in the 80s
Yes.
is what you're saying was happening at the school.
For the incinerate,
Oh.
complaints about incineration. A similar kind of claim is being made. So, or it's definitely a possibility. It's a
Oh, wow.
Anyway.
You weren't at these schools. You don't fucking know fuck all.
Well, that's true.
Are you kidding?
Anyway, so these are all, so in terms of discussing this, like we're just raised the incinerator, the claims about the incinerator.
This is art.
Okay, so I think we're gonna go and lay out the maps.
You're being told.
Okay, let's keep on going. Let's get this and Daniel.
Good.
Yes.
Support the fact that they have an elder on their territory. You're trying to tell an elder on their territory how to get you the our treaty-wide territory.
Anyway, the incineration claim. It was about the incineration claim, which has been made numerous times. And so that needs to be investigated. And you can't just accept survivors' testimonies about the incineration because that's a highly improbable claim. And the Satanic Panic, you had similar kinds of claims that were made. That, you know, all sorts of satanic abuse was happening. Turned out it was just misremembering where people had memories implanted through various stories. And I must bring up Kevin Annett at this point. Kevin Annett was a major... It's a question mark. It's a question mark. There's a question mark in this poster. So we don't know whether it is or not. And actually, I don't believe myself it's a hoax. Jaime Rubenstein, Tom Flanagan, they argue it's a hoax, but I don't believe it's a hoax. So I would argue slightly disagree. That would be my own position. Well, when I get the maths out, I will do that. So that's my position, but it doesn't matter what my position is because I'm not here to tell people, well, I don't mind participating, but it's a question mark. This is an important thing to point out here, is that people can say, yes, it is, they can say, no, it's not, they can give their reasons, but I'm hoping Jaime Rubenstein is going to be here because he argues that it's a hoax, and then I can argue against him because I don't think it's a hoax. So, but the Satanic Panic, there's a man by the name of Kevin Annett, who is very well known, who is spreading all sorts of tales of torture chambers, incinerators, and so on, and also the Queen Elizabeth II story. Billy Coombs said that Queen Elizabeth II visited the Kamloops Indian Residential School and said that Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip abducted 10 children. Queen Elizabeth II wasn't even in Kamloops in 1964, and even if Queen Elizabeth II was in Kamloops, it's highly improbable that she would be able to abduct 10 children. The Queen's
our ancestors were burned by Satanists in the Catholic Church. Jesus.
Anyway, I did not say that they were burned by Satanists. I said the Satanic Panic was a case of misremembering due to memories being implanted. And we've had Kevin Annett spreading these stories since the 90s. He made a film, Unrepentant, in 2007. People have watched that film, they've read his books. It's easy that people could just, misremember these things, and they're not lying.
Have you ever been thrown in a cubby hole?
No.
Well, I have.
Okay.
I was thrown in a fucking cubby hole by you people.
Okay, well, that was wrong. That was wrong, that happened. But that doesn't prove the incineration claim.
You're calling liars?
No, I'm not. I'm not calling you a liar. I'm saying
But you facilitate the grounds for people to have these conversations to allow the denialism to happen. Do you understand what that does to our people? Do you understand the trauma that that does to our elders? And you sit here and you facilitate it, thinking that you're doing a good fucking thing. How the fuck do you sleep at night? Seriously, how the fuck do you sleep at night?
well, I'm at a university, and I think we should be able to discuss these issues. Yeah. Exactly.
We've had dialogue.
Yep.
Debate with each other. Okay, do different groups have different ideas?
Exactly.
That's fine.
Yep.
But at least we have a civil conversation.
Yes.
But when you start to yell at the person, when you start
But it's better to have the yelling and get people to be able to communicate their ideas than to have the silencing that goes on. So we're here to just stop the silencing. It's better to have the conversations, no matter, and people can yell at me, they can call me any name in the book. It's not gonna, I can deal with it, I can hang in there, and I would like to know, this is a university. This is the University of Manitoba. The Sacred Fire, which I don't agree with that name, but if we're gonna have a fire, it should be about telling the truth at a university. Not about propaganda and preventing people from discussing things. I just had a big confrontation, Daniel was with me, we have footage of it, with the director of University of Manitoba Press in his office, in the common area. The University of Manitoba Press put out on social media that I was a residential school denier. And I demanded to know why they said that and what evidence they had for that. And he had nothing to say. Because the University of Manitoba is a disgrace, is a complete disgrace. It is an academic institution. It should be facilitating these discussions, but they wanted to charge my organization, the Society for Academic Freedom and Scholarship, between $2,000 and $5,000 towards security costs, which are because they encourage people like Sean Carlton and Negon Sinclair to foment activism on this campus instead of academic discussion. So shame on you, the president of the University of Manitoba. Shame on you, David Larson, director of the University of Manitoba Press. We're here to have the academic discussion, and if people want to yell and get upset, well, that's their right too. They can do that. So we're going to lay out the mats, and we're going to have the Spectrum Street Epistemology on the claim, and you can strongly disagree with the claim, or you can strongly agree with it. And we're going to go over here and lay the mats down on the sacred fire. So this is a truth-telling. This fire is for truth-telling. That's what it says on the University of Manitoba website. So we are going to tell some truth today in front of this fire, because that's what a university is about. Pardon me?
You can't stand on top of that. It's sacred ground, so you're not going to be up there on top.
Sorry, can you just say that on camera? Here? Oh, here? Oh, no, we're not going on the, we're gonna be on the sidewalk. That is sacred, which, sacred, it's not sacred. That's nonsense. But I'm not, it's nonsense.
What's nonsense?
This is not sacred.
What's not sacred?
This turtle rock with a fire there. That's my,
You're going to tell us what's sacred, what's not sacred on our land.
it's sacred to you. It's sacred to you. I'm not telling you.
You're gonna laugh at my own face and laugh at my face.
I'm not calling your ancestors. I'm not calling them last. I'm not. I'm saying they're misremembered.
From speaking what? From speaking what?
Why do you think I'm saying your ancestors are liars? I'm not. I don't call it a hoax. No, that's the claim we're going to be investigating. We're looking at.
It is not a hoax.
Excuse me, I'm trying to listen.
And I'm protecting my elder.
I have siblings that are put it up.
I'm going to put out the mask now.
I was born here. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you
want money.
You don't need your fucking money. You know where we get our money from.
How much have you stolen from us because of the goddamn COVID 1492 with the doctrine of this government? And that's how we run this country. All the wealth and all the resources.
Did your tribe try to steal land from neighboring tribes?
No, we're respecting our territories.
You have a record of all of this. You know that your tribe did not conduct brutal activities towards other tribes, try to steal their land and resources. That's not the way world history works.
Oh yeah, because you read it. Our ancestors have oral history.
What did you do here?
Let's study it.
Okay, so we're going to start the event now. The event is about spectrum speed epistemology, which is a method developed by Peter Boghossian. And Peter Boghossian is about trying to understand evidence for claims. So the claim that we are looking at today is about whether the claim that there's 215 remains of 215 children buried at Kamloops, is that a hoax? And some people say it's a hoax. Some people argue it's not a hoax. I personally don't think it's a hoax. And I don't, well, there might be some people who are lying, but often people don't lie. They're just misremembered, or they think they should believe the elders, or whatever it may be. So it doesn't have to be a hoax, but there's no evidence for the remains of 215 children being buried in Kamloops. And in fact, the Kamloops Indian Band has said that it's anomalies, not remains, that exist in the cemetery, in the apple orchard. So even the Kamloops Indian Band says that the remains of 215 children have not been found. So there's two rules to spectrum epistemology. The first one is you start on neutral. The second one is that you can't straddle mats. So you've got to be either on the neutral or the slightly disagree or the disagree or the slightly agree or the agree. And you can, you know, it doesn't matter what you stand on. But anyway, okay. So
Just remember whose flag you're on. Remember whose flag you're on.
okay.
Remember whose flag you're on.
What's your name?
Lorraine.
This is Lorraine. Lorraine, in response to the claim, grave error at Kamloops was a hoax, what mat would you stand on?
I would stand on neutral because I don't know enough to make a decision. I've only read what I've read in the paper, so
Okay.
who knows what the evidence is. That's why I came today.
Okay. What about, let's do another claim then.
Sorry, what is the proposition? The proposition with which we agree or disagree.
The Great Bear Kamloops is a hoax.
It is a hoax.
Yeah.
What an animal! Wow!
So you strongly agree?
Coyote.
Do you strongly agree that it's a hoax? You strongly agree that it's a hoax?
Yeah, I strongly agree.
Okay, why are you so certain that it's a hoax?
Because of all the millions put in and the refusal to dig, the fact that there's no records in the school. I've read a lot of actual original documents published by people like the Frontier Center, Jaime Rubenstein, Real Indigenous, etc. And it's if there was those are the reasons.
Okay, how would you define hoax?
I've never considered it, but basically lies perpetrated often to get money.
Okay, so you're claiming that the Kamloops Indian Band claim was a lie perpetrated to get money.
So I'm agreeing with you that it is.
Shame on you.
Okay,
Shame on you.
okay, so
You're rude.
in terms of your argument is because
I was here to listen to his speech. It's been very, very hard to listen to your speech.
well, I wasn't here to give a speech. I'm here to do the spectrum through epistemology. To kind of just see what people think about this claim.
Okay, well, I agree with you basically.
But I don't think it's a hoax.
Oh, you don't?
No.
What do you think?
So I'll just tell you over here. If I were to stand on a map, I would be on the slightly disagree. So I don't. So and the reason I slightly disagree is because in order for it to be a hoax, it has to be intentional deception. And I think a lot of what's going on at Kamloops is not intentional deception. For example, Ted Godfreyson Jr., who is a major leader in the Kamloops Indian Band, he truly believes, it appears, he truly believes that there are children buried in the apple orchard at Kamloops. And if he truly believes that, it can't be a hoax, because he's not trying to deceive people. Now, there might be some people trying to do that, but I can't prove that they're trying to do that. They could just be saying, I think we should believe the knowledge keepers. The knowledge keepers in Aboriginal culture are very important figures, and you should not contest what they say. Because if you do, you're being disrespectful. So in that kind of culture, you would not want to oppose them. So there could be people just going along with what the knowledge keepers say. So if the knowledge keepers say that there are children buried in the Kamloops apple orchard, then you should believe that. So this is probably what this woman believes, is that she probably thinks that you should believe the knowledge keepers. So that's why she thinks that there's children buried in the Kamloops apple orchard. But we can't just believe the knowledge keepers, because they're often mistaken. Often they rely on hearsay, and they don't have any evidence to support their claims other than what they've been told by other people. And they want to believe it because that will then give justification to their anger that they feel about their current situation. And I don't blame them for their anger. There's a lot of things to be angry about. First of all, $12.1 million were spent for excavations which never were done, which should have been going to dealing with the fetal alcohol syndrome problem in Aboriginal communities. But instead, it's being spent on grief counselors and healing centers and all sorts of things, salaries to band counselors and so on. I think that if people want to believe the knowledge keepers, that's their affair, but I don't think that's a hoax to say that you should believe the knowledge keepers. That means that you are actually, you're not trying to mislead people, you just believe it. So what we need is a discussion about evidence, not, you're a liar, you're at least kind of thing. So I don't think there might be some people who are lying, but it doesn't really matter if they're lying or not. The problem is the evidence.
What is the evidence? Either way.
The GPR, that's one of the pieces of evidence.
But also
I'll just give you the evidence.
Not diagnostic.
I'll just give you the evidence. So if I were on the strongly disagree, let's say I'm taking a strongly disagree position, I would say that there's a number of sources of why there's children buried in the apple orchard. The GPR, the knowledge keepers, their beliefs, and a rib bone that was claimed to have surfaced near the site, and a tooth, a juvenile tooth. Those were the claims. Sarah Bollier on July 15th gave those pieces of evidence for why there would be 215 children buried in the Kamloops apple orchard. So that's the evidence. Now, we found out later that the tooth was not human, according to the archaeology department at Simon Fraser. The rib bone has never been found. It was turned into the museum and then just disappeared. And then the knowledge keepers, although they might have some true things they say, they often say false things, not intentionally. Like as I was saying, the Queen Elizabeth II child abduction story was Billy Coombs, who I'm not sure if he was a knowledge keeper, but let's say he was a knowledge keeper. He was a person who was a survivor of the residential school. Anyway, he said that Queen Elizabeth II abducted 10 children, and Queen Elizabeth II wasn't even in Kamloops in 1964, and even if she were in Kamloops, the Queen is followed around by the press all the time. She wouldn't be able to abduct 10 children. That would be impossible. Well, some people say she's very powerful and she can do anything that she wants. So we cannot believe the knowledge keepers just on their say-so. They have a lot of misrememberings and confirmation bias, and plus there's money to be made about this too. Like there's $230 million got distributed on the basis of the Kamloops claim. So it's not like you're lying, you just follow your interests. It's in your interest to say that there's children buried at the Kamloops Indian Residential School. So that's the evidence for the hoax. I don't know if does anybody want to put forth the argument about why, so sir, you just listened to giving my reasons as to why I don't think it's a hoax. Has that affected you any your view at all?
I can't hear you because all the noise that these people are making.
Has this allowed you?
I love this guy. So, there you go, internet. Fund this side for me.
Anyway, we can't let them shut this down. We have to keep on going here. Anyone with good hearing who would like to argue that they strongly agree. So is Jaime here? No. So I know Jaime Rubenstein. He is a member of the Residential School Raisers Group. Or maybe not, he's an associate. Anyway, he argues that it is a hoax. And the reason why he argues that it's a hoax, and that's not my view, I'm just putting forward his...
Yeah, thanks for stopping.
Well, you're trying to stop the conversation, which is kind of...
This is my way of conversing.
It's anti-intellectual. It's an anti-intellectual.
I can hear.
Well, we can. Because
I'm communicating.
but it's hard for other people to hear. It's hard for other people. Anyway, we're just going to have to deal with that. That's her expression, is the drumming. It's not very conducive to intellectual discourse, but this is not an intellectual matter here. This is a seriously emotional matter. But universities are not about allowing people to follow their emotions. Universities are intellectual spaces where you follow the evidence wherever it leads. And we have intimidation that goes on at the University of Manitoba. Terrible intimidation that is happening. And we will not stand for it.
Argue with her? Why don't you argue with her?
Have you been to a residential?
I have been.
Yeah, Rodney and Clifton.
In the Sitka and in the Newvik, I was in residential school there. I was a supervisor in one of these residential schools. I lived in one of these residential schools. My wife went to residential school for 10. Nobody got killed. Nobody.
What happened?
What did you do in there?
Right.
He was a supervisor.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you're guilty by whatever it's called.
Absolutely.
Right.
If you let
Right.
evil perpetuate, you're just as guilty.
It is not perpetuating. It's trying to find the and
So much for truth.
Oh yeah, truth, exactly.
But why don't you stand on this side and let Frances stand over there and you argue with her in English so that everybody can understand
Why
it.
in English? Why?
Okay,
Because that's the lingua franca here.
that's the language that
I am French. I don't.
and you don't speak English.
That's fine. Argue in French. What's the difference between French and this? This is a way of communicating. French has an
It is. It's a way of shutting out communication.
Okay, Rod. No, but we want to hear your views, Rod. Because Rod Clifton is here with me today. Rod Clifton was a supervisor at a residential school. Is that correct, Rod?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, what residential school were you a supervisor at?
Stringer Hall in Inuvik, 1966-67.
Okay, so you were a supervisor at Stringer Hall in Inuvik from 1966 to 1967.
Yes.
Were any children murdered in Inuvik?
No.
No.
Is there any reports of missing children in Inuvik?
No.
What was your impression of the residential school in Inuvik?
It was a school in which children were, it was a residence for the public school, Sir Alexander Mackenzie School, and I was 21 years of age. I was in charge of 85 kids in 3 different dorms. It provided an education for these children and a place where these children could live without, if they were living in their own communities, they wouldn't be able to have an education because many of them come from small hunting camps and communities in which there were no schools.
So you're saying that because they lived in hunting camps, the children, for them to have to get an education, including reading and writing and learning to participate in the modern world, it's hard to think about how that could have happened unless they were in a residence and staying in a residence.
It's impossible to think about how that would happen without that.
Well, there is the case of the Soviet Union where they traveled in the camps, teachers traveled in the camps.
They tried that in Canada, but it didn't work very well because the people were moving and they didn't have, like the Sami have reindeer that they were herding that you could actually follow them. They were hunting and trapping.
That's an interesting point. So in terms of the comparison with the Soviet Union, which I've seen made, that was a reindeer herding society, which is a bit more organized than small groups hunting in small bands. So you would have to have many teachers following around a whole bunch of different bands, and it would be just impossible.
Impossible.
Okay, so the reason why the children in Inuvik learned to read and write is because they went to that residence.
There were 2 residences. There was Stringer Hall, which was the Anglican residence which I worked in, and there was Royer Hall, which was the Roman Catholic residence. About 200 kids in each of the residences.
Okay, so here we have a story now. Of course, your memory could be selective. You've got obviously, you're trying to protect your reputation. So, but still, is there any other sources that could help us kind of investigate further the Inuvik situation?
There is a lot. There are a number of books that have been written on aboriginal education and on residential schools. And John Honeyman did a very good book called Eskimo Townsman on Inuvik and the school. I worked with him on this work. I kept records of what I observed. I turned them over to the center here. They're in the center. Hundreds of photographs of the children.
So this important records that we need to understand are right here in this National Center for Truth and Reconciliation. Are we able to access those records?
I can't access them.
So Rod cannot even access his own records about what happened in the Inuvik school at this center, which just got $20 million from the Manitoba government and is keeping these records away from the public to be able to study the residential schools. Is that correct?
Give the money back.
The money should be returned if those records are not made available for the public.
I agree. I think it has to be public. All the records have to be public, and those people that are contrary-minded and those people that are not should have access to these records so they can see what actually is in the records.
And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that this center is under a trust deed, which is supposed to make those records available to the public. So why has it not made these records available to the public?
No one wants to stand on that issue and fight it, and the university is backing down in terms of accountability between this center and the university.
This university is a disgrace. The University of Manitoba is a disgrace. The government of Manitoba is a disgrace for giving this center $20 million when it is not allowing those records to be released to the public, which it says in its trust deed. We need those records released so we can see what Rod's pictures look like, what all the different information is about the Inuvik Springer Hall, which was a residence, which we need to study to have a full picture of what occurred at the residential schools. This area is about truth-telling. That's what we're supposed to be doing here, is truth-telling. How can we tell the truth if we don't have the records to be able to study things, to try to be able to understand what is happening with respect to the residential schools?
Truth over emotion.
I agree. My wife went to, for those people that are pounding it, my wife went to residential school for 10 years.
So Rod's wife went to a residential school for 10 years. Which residential school did she go to, Rod?
Old Son on Siksika First Nation in Alberta.
Old Son on Siksika First Nations in Alberta. And if you can speak for her, I'm not sure if you can, what was her experience like at Old Son?
When we were very young, people asked if you went to residential school because they had never met many Aboriginal people, and so she used to say yes, and then pretty soon she started saying, no, I went to a private Anglican school. And then she got so angry with what's going on with Nig and Sinclair's articles in the Free Press and all of these other things that she stopped talking about it for about 20 years. And now she's back poking people on the shoulder and saying, hey, I went to a private Anglican school.
Okay, but did she have any stories about missing children and children being murdered and children being thrown into incinerators at the residential school?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. What is your view? I just heard this earlier on. Someone came up to me and said that children were thrown into incinerators at a residential school. What's your view on that?
It's impossible because Indian Affairs pay the schools on a per capita basis, and they require quarterly reports. And if you look at the quarterly reports which you have, Francis, you will see that the names of the children are there, and they had inspectors. Often they hired provincial inspectors, school inspectors to come in and inspect the schools for both education as well as living conditions. And if anything was amiss, they would have been reported.
I hear it said all the time, though, that there's a lot of records that are missing. Is that correct? Are records missing?
There are some records missing because Indian Affairs, we understand, dispose of some of the old records, and they may have copies of them. We don't really know. We just heard rumors about these things being missing without having any evidence that they are.
And I just wanted to bring up, because this is what I was having a conversation before this all started with some Aboriginal people who were a bit upset about me being here. And I was talking to them about the figure of Kevin Annett. And people should really understand the role that Kevin Annett has played. Kevin Annett is a person who was the defrauded the United Church minister. He wrote a number of books and wrote a film called Unrepentant produced a film called Unrepentant in 2007. He has been saying things like, babies being burned in incinerators, torture chambers in the basements of residential schools, thousands of children buried in the walls of residential schools, and there's not one piece of evidence to support what Kevin Annett is saying, and he has said many, many things which have been shown to be false. I think my own view is, I think it's similar to the Satanic panic that happened in the 1980s and 90s, where people were had tales told to them in various emotional settings, and they absorbed those memories as their own and began to recount them because they were encouraged to do so. And that's really what's happened here, is if you have a horror story about the residential schools, you're encouraged and told, yes, you're a survival, it's wonderful to hear your story. But if you have a view that, like your wife has, where she seems to have had although it might have been strict discipline, she seems to have some things that she thinks went well there. She hasn't spoken about it for 20 years because people don't want to hear that. So you have a very unbalanced conversation that is happening because of all the intimidation that is occurring across Canada in the universities especially. University of Manitoba, shame on you. You are a disgrace. You need to open up discussion, stop Negon Sinclair and John Carlton from intimidating people. Open up this center to be an actual truth-telling center where you can have people present evidence and look at the records. This is not about pursuing the truth. This is about disseminating propaganda at the behest of people like Peter Larson, who is the director of the University of Manitoba Press. Daniel Page and I went into the University of Manitoba Press offices before this event, and we confronted Peter Larson, and we asked him, why have you called me a residential school denier on social media, Peter Larson? You need to explain yourself. What was this about? And he said, I've got to think about this, and I'm sorry, I got to go away here. And then he said, are you recording this? And I said, yes, I am. And he said, I'd like you to leave now, please, so to protect my private work spot. And I said, okay, we're going, but you're going to hear a lot more about this from that recording that I have, which shows the absolute embarrassment that is the University of Manitoba Press, which is not an academic press. It is a propaganda machine that is funding the aboriginal industry that is going on here at the University of Manitoba. So we need to have a serious change in the administration of this university so that students can feel free to discuss these ideas and not be intimidated by these activist professors who really are not doing their jobs in terms of the situation. Anyway, that's me on my soapbox. That's not why I'm here. I am here to facilitate this claim, which is, and I don't believe this claim. I'm on the slightly disagree mat here on the claim the graveyard at Kamloops was a hoax. I don't agree. I don't think it was a hoax because I think that people really believe, Aboriginal people really believe that there are 215 children buried there. But there's no evidence for 215 children being buried there. And in fact, the Kamloops band has said that there are anomalies on the GPR. Do people know? I have been on an actual GPR study which has shown that an anomaly can be a big boulder. You don't know what is underneath the ground. So the only evidence we have was these anomalies, and so the claim, the remains of 215 children have been found. Let's say that's the claim. That's a new claim. I'm on a neutral mat. The remains of 215 children have been found at the Kamloops Indian Residential School. I'm going to go on the strongly disagree, I'm going to go on the strongly disagree mat. There is no evidence that the remains of 215 children have been found. Those anomalies are probably cobbles, animal burrows, they could be boulders, they could be anything. We need to excavate to see whether there are 215 children buried there, and in order to excavate, the Kamloops band has to do that. They got $12.1 million to excavate at that site. Now, if they did excavate and they found remains, I would go to the neutral map, because I don't know what's going on there. What are those remains? Are they children? Were they people who died of, or did they, what was going on? So I would be moved by excavation. And the other thing about Kamloops is, the reason why I'm on the strongly disagree map, that's okay. The reason why...
Can I talk to you for 1 second?
Yep.
Is there any way, there's a lot of people that are on what they consider to be medicine. Can we move it just to the sidewalk?
Yep.
Would that be okay if we can do that right now?
Oh, yeah.
please? I really appreciate it.
I just wanted to let people know, for people who are standing on these plants, you shouldn't be standing on the plants. So if you want to move to the sidewalk, or you can move to this,
We can move all to the sidewalk.
Okay.
That would be much appreciated.
If everyone can move to the sidewalk, then the plants will not be destroyed. Okay, so, well, you said that everyone should move to the sidewalk.
If you can
So
take
she
yourself.
should move to the sidewalk.
Oh, that's
Hey,
beautiful.
you know what?
Beautiful.
You literally just got in the way of my drumming.
Well, I wonder how that happened, lady.
Residential school survivors
Okay.
deserve to have a voice as well. You don't get to come here.
We can get it. This will turn violent. We don't want violence.
Okay,
Residential school survivors deserve
over here. Okay, so in terms of the Kamloops case, another reason to be on the
Can we get everyone to move, please?
Okay.
We've talked about it
Okay,
right now.
everyone needs to move onto the sidewalk.
You need to move on the sidewalk.
You need to move
Go
on the
ahead.
sidewalk.
I'll follow you. I'll follow you.
Go, girl.
Go ahead.
Let's go, girl. Wow.
Okay, so I'm going to take the maps and I'm going to put them on the sidewalk.
All the way to the sidewalk.
I'm getting the maps.
Okay, my help?
Yeah, yep. Take out the maps and we'll move to the sidewalk. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yep. Thank you very much. I'll hold it actually. If it gets lost, it gets lost.
Guys with hammers.
It's all good.
You're very brave.
I will not give in on this. I will not give 1/1000th of an inch on this nonsense. Okay. Okay, so the reason why we moved is because people were trampling the plants, and we don't want plants to be trampled because, you know, this is, you know, we want plants to grow. We don't want plants to be trampled. So, anyway, so what I was talking about before, so we're now on the sidewalk, not on the plants. So this is good. I was talking about why I'm also on the strongly disagree, Matt, with respect to the remains of 215 children being found at the Kamloops Indian Residential School. And the reason why I am on the strongly disagree, Matt, is because not one parent has said their child never came home to the Kamloops Indian Residential School. So if there are 215 children buried children be? And that's a lot of remains to be buried clandestinely. And if you visit the Kamloops Indian Residential School, which I have twice now, you'll notice that it's very close to Kamloops. It's about a 10-minute walk from the Kamloops Indian Residential School to Kamloops. So, therefore, you know, it'd have to be in the middle of the night. Also, we hear plausible stories about children being woken up in the middle of the night, 6-year-olds to dig their graves. That's really improbable. So there's a lot of stories that are being, I don't think that's very respectful for you to be doing that.
Excuse me, officer. How can that not be allowed? Please take action.
I don't think they are allowed to take action. Anyway, I'm allowing people to drum in my ear, which I don't find is very pleasant, to be honest. I have a hearing problem already, and I don't think that's going to be very helpful for my hearing problem. Not that they care, because they believe they're right. And they're going to stop anyone from discussing anything because it's a religious belief for them. And they do not follow evidence wherever it goes. So it's fine to be an activist, but universities are not places of activism. Universities are places of critical examination and analysis. And the University of Manitoba is failing, massively failing in its ability to discuss this issue. Because universities are not universities anymore. They're child care centers. They're nursery schools. I was at Mount Royal University yesterday, and we had some stupid human spider web exercise where all these students with orange shirts button put themselves in the spider web thing, according to some aboriginal creation story, which is utter nonsense. And if people want to do that, that's fine. But why is Mount Royal University promoting that kind of stuff when people don't understand basic science? They can't write an essay. They can't do basic intellectual work because of all this nonsense that's going on. But we're here at the University of Manitoba because this is one of the universities in the house of shame. Because of this monstrosity, the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation, which should not be on a university campus. It should be in an Aboriginal rights center, because it doesn't study things to pursue the truth. It looks at things to disseminate propaganda. That's what it does. And it won't even release the records that Rod and his wife provided on the Nuvik school. Anyway, back to the claim. The grave era of Kamloops was a hoax. That's the claim. Now, I've already said that I'm on the slightly disagree matter, because I don't think people are trying to intentionally deceive, for the most part. I don't think there are 215 children buried, but I think people truly believe that's the case, because they believe the knowledge keepers. Don't believe the knowledge keepers. The knowledge keepers believe a whole bunch of false things. They might have some true things that they are saying, but they have a lot of false things that they're saying too. So that's the first thing. However, there are some people, and I'll speak for them, they're not here today, Jaime Rubenstein and Tom Flanagan, strongly agree that it's a hoax. Now why would they strongly agree that it's a hoax? And the reason why they do is because there's been constant attempts to control the information out of Kamloops. There's been constant attempts to control the information out of Kamloops. We had, to start with, Sarah Bollier came between May, I think it was the 19th to the 22nd, where she did her DPR work. There was a press release that was developed probably by Rachel Coy, who was the public relations consultant. They kept that press release. It was done on the 25th. And what occurred was they distributed amongst friendly journalists, which included Angela Starrett and Tanya Talaga. And you might be aware of Tanya Talaga. She is not a journalist, although she works for the Globe and Mail. She is an activist, and she just recently wrote a book, an embarrassing book called The Knowing. Anyway, Tanya Talaga was invited to be one of those people, but because she's such an incompetent, she wasn't checking her emails, and so she missed the communication. Anyway, they all got together and they looked over this press release, and then they gave it as a scoop to James Peters on May 27th. So it was all planned. It was planned, and then they didn't allow any of the media, talk to the media until July 15th, when Sarah Bollier gave her presentation. And Sarah Bollier stated it was just anomalies and not remains. But we had a month and a half where people never heard anything else, and during that time, the country went crazy with a mass hysteria about the 215 graves being found, and we still are having a hard time dislodging that idea out of the public consciousness, even though the Kamloops Indian Band in 2024 said that it was anomalies, not remains. So even they admit it. But Ted Godfreyson Jr., who's one of the big leaders there, I heard him say on September 2024, which is 4 months after that children were buried in the Applewood. He said that. So, and I think he believes that. So he just thinks you should believe the knowledge keepers, and he doesn't follow evidence at all. He doesn't even seem to know what his own press release says on the website. The other thing I should mention is the role that Murray Sinclair played, which people don't know a lot about. Murray Sinclair is an embarrassment. I know people honor him and revere him, but I won't. He is not putting forth truth, even though he was the head of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. He said in 2010 that almost every Aboriginal child in Canada has been forced to attend a residential school. That's not true. Only a third of children attend residential schools, and most of them, their parents signed application forms. He also fomented the unmarked graves claim, and worse in my mind, the worst thing that he did, he also said between 15,000 and 25,000 children had died at the residential school. We only have the number of 423 in the Truth and Reconciliation report. So there's another misinformation perpetuated by Murray Sinclair. And then the worst thing that he did is that he intervened in the police investigation about Kamloops. I believe it was July 3rd when the police were questioning Sarah Bollier, because she's the DPR expert who found the anomalies. They wanted to know her methodology. He said that they were intimidating her and they were acting in this heavy-handed fashion and so on. So Murray Sinclair was part of the reason why we never had a police investigation take place, which you think would happen if we had 215 clandestine burials in Kamloops. Wouldn't that occur? Like, wouldn't the police be interested in this situation? But thanks to Murray Sinclair, this much lauded figure, someone who's like supposed to be involved in Truth and Reconciliation, we had this massive falsehood take place at Kamloops, and then now we can't seem to stop it. And we have this stupid National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, which has got nothing to do with truth, and it's all about, stopping people from speaking, which is what they're doing here. I got a little bit of hearing problems, so this is not good for my hearing, but I'm sure they're glad that I will probably have some hearing problems from this situation. But I don't care. Take away my hearing, you people, because you should not, you can be at a university, but you're certainly not intellectuals, and you're certainly not contributing to truth. We're here to pursue the truth, and this cannot happen in the current climate, which it's all the University of Manitoba's fault. It's completely the fault of the University of Manitoba for encouraging this activism. Yes, you can.
We're gonna leave you here. And you can spew all your hate, but we'll be back.
What did you want to say some things about your own views?
No, we said enough.
You said enough? I assume you would be on, in terms of the hoax question, you'd be on the strongly disagree mat. Am I right in that? Does anyone want to say why they don't think that the Grey Bear at Kamloops was a hoax? You can say your piece here and you can explain all your ideas, right in front of the cameras and everything.
Please come share your truth.
We want to hear your truth. We're at the quote-unquote sacred fire, which, I think that's not really, I don't really agree with that. It should be the fire of truth-seeking. I'm renaming it, the fire of truth-seeking. And in order for us to have a fire of truth-seeking, we need to hold this center to account. We need those records released to the public so that people can hear about Rod Clifton's Springer Hall experience and all the other documents that relate to that. And we need that $20 million to be given back to the people of Manitoba if they're not going to release those records, because it's part of the trust deed that they are put under so that they will be shepherds of those records for the public. So it can be a place of study where people can really understand what happened at the residential schools, which I know there was abuse that happened in many schools, there was neglect that happened, there were poor conditions, there were ventilation problems. All these things were documented by Peter Bryce in 1907. But the government did, discuss this in the House of Commons. They didn't do enough. But, there were some terrible conditions that existed and a high rate of deaths. So that was a problem. But that's not saying that 215 children are murdered and dumped into a grave, or 215 graves in Kamloops, or there's 215 clandestine burials in Kamloops. And the incinerated children idea, that's straight out of the mouth of Kevin Annett. Along with other crazy things that he was saying. So there's no evidence. And the one case of the incineration that we do have was in the movie Sugar Cane. It wasn't an actual incineration, it was an attempted incineration. And that was an Aboriginal mother who put her baby on a garbage burner. It wasn't anything to do with the people who work at the school. So that got shaped by these activist filmmakers to somehow, have this kind of inference that, it was the staff at that school. All right, who wants to do Spectrum and Street Epistemology?
I will.
Okay, stand on neutral, please, sir. What's your name?
Pence close right.
Ken, close right. Okay, Ken. We have two rules. One is we start on the neutral. The other is you can't straddle the mats. You gotta stand. You gotta stick your mat. So in response to the claim, the greater Kamloops was a hoax, what mat would you stand on?
I am moving this way. I really appreciate the precision in your language, because hoax is a very particular thing, and it's very easy to use imprecise terms.
Okay.
So I think everybody is in a slightly different place in their minds. So people that believe it, you're right, that's not a hoax. Do you want me to hold on?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll hold it because I have to take it back.
Got it. Okay. But for some people, obviously they know it's not true. So for some people in the leadership, it's a hoax. I don't think it's a coincidence that this happened in 2021, a year after the revolution in America in 2020. That timing is not a coincidence. That it's been primed. They were sort of waiting for this. If we pick an arbitrary number, 25 is a nice even number. If we go back 25 years, in 2000, was the political culture such that First Nations people were too afraid to bring up these bodies that everyone knew about? No, it wasn't.
Have you heard about the police investigation that happened in the 1990s about the residential schools?
Just a little bit.
Anyway, we just interviewed someone who's involved in that investigation. There's a task force. His name was Jerry Peters. It's part of a documentary that Simon Hergott and I are doing called Uncovering the Grave Era Kamloops. And in their whole investigation in the 1990s, and Charlene Bello was the liaison, so they made sure that they had Aboriginal buy-in in terms, it's on criminal acts, but it was largely about sexual abuse because of the Arthur Plint case Anyway, not one claim about missing children, not one claim about unmarked graves. There were 3 allegations of suspicious deaths that were made. All were investigated, all were found to be unsubstantiated. So that was in the 1990s. So what's your response to that? Does that make you even more kind of confirmed, or how would you respond?
Well, they would if they were investigated and the claims found to not be true. Well, that's a very strong thing. The other thing is that they don't want a police investigation today. They want to be in control of it, right? So give us money, we're gonna do the investigation, or apparently not do the investigation. Just sit on the money, collect the money, demand more. It's literally just an attempt to find out if the bodies are there, right? So if it's been 4.5 years and there's no investigation, well, what would a person think, right?
Okay, so if let's say I'm on the strongly disagree, Matt, which I'm very familiar with the arguments about that. What do you think the best argument would be in response to that from the strongly disagree side?
So how would I start to move you over on the map?
No. What do you think my best argument would be on the strongly disagree, Matt?
Well, I don't know. I had a friendly conversation with someone here today. My standard thing is there's a calm person on the other side, and we don't want to always say they're on the other side, but in this case they were on the other side. A calm, kind-hearted person. I could sense it in her. My standard thing is, I will buy you lunch. Please, I want to talk about this with you. If an individual, the elderly lady making a claim about abuse, I'm strongly inclined to believe her, and I care about her, so we can offer care to you. But if you claim that the moon is made of cream cheese, that's not related to a possibly or probably true story of abuse that you encountered. We're literally just trying to find out if there are bodies buried in the ground in Kamloops, right?
Okay, but in terms of the hoax claim, I am saying I'm on the slightly disagree, Matt, but you're saying what? As far as I understand, let me just make sure your argument. If it's not a hoax, why don't they just excavate, and why are they so reluctant to excavate? Is that your argument?
Yeah, exactly. And again, the lady I was talking to, she was saying, well, what does it matter if that's true? Like, I think she thinks it's trying to discredit the whole story. So we need to put forward the message, we're taking claims individually, and yes, when claims stack up, they do paint a picture. But that doesn't mean that every claim has to be accepted just because it could upset people, right? So I'm not exactly answering your question.
Yeah, we want you to, here I am, I'm standing on the strongly disagree, Matt. I'm saying it's definitely not a hoax, and just because they don't excavate, they've got a real good reason for why they're not excavating. You know what that reason is? The reason is, and this is not my view, this is what the view is of the strongly disagree in response to that, is that you don't want to disturb the dead. So we don't want to disturb the dead, so therefore we're not going to excavate.
But graves are sacred to everybody. Let's talk to the anthropology department and see if there's a human culture for whom graves are not sacred. We can handle it in a gentle way. We can try to incorporate practices that won't violate certain sensitivities, but an investigation has to be done, obviously, with that claim.
And as well, the Kamloops Indian Band, and this might help you in terms of your position, they received $12.1 million to do the excavations. So if it was such a sacred ground and they didn't want to disturb the dead and so on, why are they applying for $12.1 million?
Things that make you go,
But still, I think, now I'm on the slightly disagree. The more we talk about this, I'm moving over to the neutral map a little bit here, because I think the excavations for me really are a huge problem for the Kamloops Indian Band. And, I understand, it could have been, just to explain my position, why I kind of, maybe I'm neutral. Because what happens is they decided to do the excavations. They got $12.1 million, and then a lot of community members started expressing kind of opposition to it and so on. And that's what, because I was calling it a fraud for a while, personally. But then I looked up fraud, and I asked Rock, actually, is the fact that the Kamloops Indian Band took $12.1 million to do excavations and did not do the excavations, is that fraud? And it was a very interesting response that Rock gave. Rock said, it depends. It depends on whether they intended not to excavate when they took the money. And they might have intended to excavate, it's just that when they decide to go about trying to do it, they got all this community opposition and they do things according to consensus. And the 13 family heads were no longer on board, so they just kind of decided, but they still had the $12.1 million.
So even if they believed it at the beginning, clearly they're foot dragging now, when it certainly seems like they don't believe the bodies are there. So even if they did at the beginning, time to give the money back or do the investigation.
Well, it's going to depend upon what the application form actually said, which we don't know 100% because it's redacted.
But
So just from the street epistemology method, what kind of evidence would you need to move more towards the agree or the slightly agree?
if there were bodies found in the other excavations, like in Pine Creek in Manitoba, I think also in Brandon in Manitoba, if we had found it there, then you could think, oh, this was a pattern. Maybe there was an organized effort to try to hide the bodies that way. So that could move me.
Okay.
But I don't believe we found that, except where there was a known cemetery, which is obviously where you're going to find bodies. So that doesn't count.
Okay, so some excavations finding the remains of children, that would make you move more towards the neutral map. Because you don't really know what's going on there. Now, it's true, it could be an epidemic where children die.
These are in the wrong. Oh, no, that's right. That's right. Sorry.
Completely agree. No, I think we got it right. Yep. Okay. What other things do you think should be said?
Well, we have representatives. We have representatives from the law school here opposing free speech. So we need to invite the faculty from the law school to come and give a presentation about how we shouldn't be having a kind, open discussion on a public sidewalk.
So how is the law school opposing free speech?
We have a representative from the Indigenous Law Students Association saying that you shouldn't be here on this sidewalk talking.
Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a representative from the law school here?
Well, not from the Indigenous Law Students Association.
From the Indigenous Law School Students Association is here?
She's
saying that I shouldn't be having this conversation here on the sidewalk?
Yeah, she's gone now. I invited her to a conversation and she would not engage. I just wanted a friendly conversation. So now I want to know if that's the policy of the law school at the University of Manitoba. Is that what they're teaching the students? That if you get upset, you should try to shut down free speech. So we should go and ask the law school if that's what they're teaching the students.
Also, in case people didn't hear this, which I'm really pissed, I'm incredibly pissed about this, the director of the University of Manitoba Press, he has some understanding of this, I think. They put out stuff on their public media channels saying that I was a residential school denier. University of Manitoba Press, I want your evidence for that. What are you talking about? Are you aware of my work on the Kamloops Indian Residential School? Are you aware of my academic work on residential school denialism, the criminalization of residential school denialism? If you are not, you are a disgrace. Well, you're a disgrace anyway because we should be having these conversations at a university, and you are intimidating people. That's what you're doing. It's an intellectual intimidation designed to stop people from asking the questions that need to be asked. And that's what universities are for. And the reason why we have all this ridiculous stuff happening with respect to the unmarked graves all across the country, the quote-unquote unmarked graves, is because the universities are massively failing. They have become activists in their orientation, and they don't allow these conversations to take place, or they make it very difficult. I tried to book 2 rooms for a professor here, at the University of Manitoba, and they tried to charge my organization, the Society for Academic Freedom and Scholarship, between $2,000 and $5,000 to pay for security costs. And I said, piss off, University of Manitoba. I'm not having my organization spend its hard-fought funds to try to have some security detail for a non-existent threat that was totally non-existent, that threat. I got my eardrums damaged a little bit there with the drumming, but so what? You know, who cares? I'll be able to survive. And we showed, even in what I consider to be quite strong provocation, we just came out here and continued to discuss the ideas without, we just didn't listen. Don't back down. Don't back down from this intimidation. Keep going. Keep going, people. Students, professors, everyone at the University of Manitoba, government of Manitoba, who as well is a bit of an embarrassment. I gotta say, Wab Canoe, you are an embarrassment. You know you are. He's a political operator. And, he was implying that I was just doing things for clicks, and I was, I am doing what a professor should be doing. I have no apologies to make for what I'm doing. This is what all professors should be doing, and we've got to take it to the street. We've got to go to the street instead of the classroom because of all the indoctrination that is going on this campus. Sean Carlton and Egon Sinclair, the worst perpetrators of the indoctrination that is happening here. Okay, enough on my soapbox here. Who else wants to participate? Okay, on the neutral mat. So do you want to do the same claim, or do you have another claim that you like?
Let's do the same claim.
Okay, so the claim is the grave error at Kamloops was a hoax. Okay.
So I disagree for the same reason that you disagree, which is that a hoax implies that it's the known malicious cover-up. It's to obfuscate the truth. I don't think people are really doing that. I don't think if you've ever heard any apologist arguments from Christian apologetics, you often hear who would die for a lie, right? When Paul and all these other apostles died. I really do, and I'm not a Christian, but I really do believe that they believe that Christ rose, right? And I think the same thing of this side over here that was just here. I think they really do believe it, but the problem is that their standards of proof are just not up to snuff.
Okay. What do you think about Jaime Rubenstein? I think it's he, or maybe it's Tom Flanagan's claim about the control over information that has been going on, quite manufactured control of information that's been going on by the Kamloops Indian Band since May 25th, so 2 days before the world knew they were actively involved in controlling the information.
I'm not entirely familiar with it, but based on that information, and this is what they should be doing as well, is based on this information that I know that you've been given to me.
Would that move you to slightly disagree, Matt?
It's hard because I don't know if people can, I think people can manipulate the truth without knowing that they're manipulating the truth. I think that they can take things to support their ideology without really knowing they're doing it. It's what makes ideology so enticing and intoxicating on its extreme levels.
Yeah, and something to maybe support you is often people follow their interests.
Yeah.
And so you just, I think it's one of the terms is confirmation bias.
Yes, yeah.
So you tend to listen to the things that you agree with and not listen to things that go against your interests. It perhaps is confirmation bias that's going on.
Yeah, and not only that, I think memories can be created through certain kinds of stimuli, such as, I gave the example while I was on the way here, my friend, that my friend convinced me that there was a Star Wars character and it gave you some ridiculous name. And he's like, you remember the Star Wars character? You remember he was in this movie? And I'm very familiar with the Star Wars movies. But I was like, oh yeah, no, I kind of remember that guy, yeah. So he was kind of like this. At the end of it, he was like, there's no such guy, right? But the point is, I really did believe, with my knowledge of Star Wars, that this guy existed because he also had knowledge of Star Wars.
Yeah.
And so this is a bit of a funny analogy, but I think you can see where I'm.
And I've done that with my husband sometimes. I kind of, like I tell him right away, but I start to encourage him to believe something, and then when he does, I say, oh, I was just because I was just showing him that this is something that can happen. Like memory is a very difficult thing, which I don't think people understand. And I'm not sure if you've heard of the Satanic panic.
Yes, I've heard.
Yeah, so that was a case, and that's why people kept on saying to me early on, you're saying our elders are lying. I don't think the elders are lying. I think they've heard these stories, they've heard other people tell these stories, and if you hear them in emotional circumstances, they start to become your stories, and it's hard to separate out your stories from other people's stories.
And then you have to ask, like, what is the burden of proof then to confirm these stories? What is the burden of proof? And so, you know, if it wasn't worded in the way where it's like a hoax, I'd probably be more on that side. Okay. Because when you have people saying it's a memory, I remember this happening. It's like, for some reason we've decided that memory is suddenly infallible when it comes from certain people. I don't think that's true. I think we're all human. So if our memory is fallible, then we have to also corroborate this evidence with other evidence, documentation, and like, you know, other people's stories do help with that, of course. That's how we do it in the courts. Like, imagine if you went into a courtroom and you had the witness go up and they said their testimony, and it's like, well, that's it. We believe them because that's the testimony.
Yes. Okay, so in terms of your movement, what kind of evidence would you need to move either more towards the strongly disagree mat or more towards the neutral mat?
To make it like whether or not it's like in order to be convinced that it was a hoax.
Yeah, so if you were to think, okay, if I'm gonna think it's a hoax, what kind of information would you need to move?
I'd probably need someone very deliberately finding evidence to the contrary of what they're trying to say. So they find deliberate, you know, if they dug up something and they said, well, there's no one here, but we're going to say there's someone here, then obviously I think I'd probably move all the way down.
So if you had, for example, emails between people saying, we should really do this so that we can get the $12.1 million or whatever.
Yeah, like, see, again, that also kind of goes into I do believe that they really believe they need that money for certain reasons. I think there's obviously, when you get offered $12 million, it's hard to say no. But at the same time, you can really believe you need that $12 million. If someone said, here's $12 million, think of some reasons why you might want it.
Yeah.
I mean, you might think of some ridiculous reasons, but there's reason nonetheless, and you will believe it because the material incentive is so strong.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, people tend to follow their interests. And so if it's easy to convince yourself that you really should have the reason necessary to get this money.
Yeah.
And so you can see yourself kind of invent, especially if you're not really prone to critical thinking about things anyway, you're prone to going with your emotions.
Yeah. Well, and I'd also add on to that it's no secret that indigenous people do live in some pretty horrible condition in a lot of places.
Yeah.
And having that money offered to you, I mean, to be honest, it would be kind of dumb not to take the money when you really do need it like that badly. In a lot of this reserves, there's no running water. There's no services around them, and even in the city, there's obviously lots of heavily dense. Densely populated. Sorry. Areas where there's a high indigenous population, and they really do need the money. So I'm not surprised that when in 2005 this whole truth and reconciliation thing came about for compensating survivors, that a lot of people took it because, I mean, why would you not take it if you were in residential school?
Yeah.
And you can say that, well, and someone says, well, you were really hurt in residential schools, were you? And you think back, like, oh yeah, I guess I was. It doesn't take very much, especially when you need the money.
Yeah. And so, why are you on the disagree and not on the strongly disagree?
I don't have enough evidence, I think, or enough. I haven't been presented with enough evidence to fully conclude that it wasn't a hoax. I think that there's still room to where I can be shown something that would convince me that it was probably a hoax.
So things like the control over communications and so on, that goes to make you less certain?
Yeah, it would make me less certain. It would make me think it was more malicious intent, especially if like we have record of people knowingly doing it, and saying, you know, this like I know it's hard to get people like having their thoughts on an email spread, right? Just saying, you know, well, I really want to cover this up, but like, you know, that's the kind of thing that is hard to find, but something similar to that where they're deliberately hiding information.
So if I go back to neutral, I just want to see what you think about another thing. So the claim now is the remains of 215 children have been found in the Kamloops Indian Residential School. Okay, so you don't think that that's not the case?
I don't think that's the case at all.
Okay, so why are you on the strongly disagree?
Yeah, I know I'm kind of contradicting myself here when I said I need more evidence over here. But simply, I think it's because you're proving you're saying a claim is proven because there is no evidence that not proven. So that's not good enough for me. I need real evidence that there is indeed people underneath this.
Okay, and what would that evidence be?
Excavations.
Yes, excavations and $12.1 million for. So why is it you think that hasn't happened?
Well. Again, I think some of it is like it's really genuine. Like I think they really do believe that it is sacred ground. If there are indeed children buried there, so they're inclined to believe it's sacred ground, and that disturbing it would be religiously problematic. But at the same time, like I think there is again a material incentive and also there's a real material gain that can be had from not excavating and yet being able to have a reason to keep having money given to you.
Yep.
If you say, well, we don't quite have the resources yet, we need more resources for this, right?
Yeah.
And that may come in the form of consulting, lots and lots of consulting, and getting all the equipment, because excavations are not easy either. Like it doesn't.
Right. Yeah. Like Pine Creek. I'm not sure if you were familiar with the Pine Creek case.
Was that up north here?
That was in Manitoba.
Yeah. I believe they didn't find anything there.
No, it was in a church basement. The knowledge keepers had said that children were buried in the church basement. They took a GPR machine. They found that there were 14 anomalies that looked like they would be remains on the GPR. They took they did a forensic excavation, so they did the whole sifting of things and everything, and they found that there were rocks where the anomalies were.
Yeah, so that sort of shows that there's a good likelihood that any of the ground penetrating radar will just show anomalies which are just non-living, or even if they were living, they may even just be animals, right? But that's not to say that, of course, there won't be any children, which is why there's such a kerfuffle about whether there is.
Yeah. Anything else you think should be said?
I really think that people need to listen to each other and listen to each side of the conversation, because you're not going to get the information. You're not going to get the truth if you only listen to one side all the time, no matter what. Everyone needs to break out of their echo chambers and start talking to people who disagree with them.
What do you think about this method, Spector's Epistemology, for trying to facilitate these kinds of discussions?
I think it's excellent. I've been following Peter Pagosha for a while. I love that book that you showed earlier. I've read it. My mother gave it to me for my birthday, actually. And it was, but I think it's an excellent way to it's what Socrates did, straight up.
Exactly.
He went around and he went all around Athens. How do you know what you know, and why do you know that? Like that is the way philosophy is done. That is the way conversations are had, and that's the way we can find the truth.
Yes. Okay. Well, University of Manitoba, if you're listening to this, you need to start the Spectrum Street Epistemology on your campus, and you need to stop being so obstructional in this thing. Anyway, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. It was great. Okay, other people who want to, okay, on the neutral. Is there a claim you'd like to discuss, or?
Just seems
The same claim? Okay, so the claim is the grave era Kamloops was a hoax. Okay, so you're on the slightly agree, Matt. Why are you on the slightly agree, Matt?
Well, I do think there are some bodies there. I just think like the whole thing has been
I was hijacked for nefarious purposes.
Okay, so you believe that there are some bodies in the apple orchard?
Yeah, I don't know if I was a neutral or slightly agree. I put myself here because I do lean more towards agrees to that.
But you think it's slightly a hoax because it's been taken over by Irish interests?
Yeah, I think it's not used for an agenda, like it's pushing ideas.
Okay. Why do you think there's some bodies buried in the Kamloops orchard?
Again, I'm no expert, but I think they found other bodies, and then if you have a school, especially back then, you're gonna have like disease all around.
You know that there's a cemetery on the Kamloops Reserve, so there are children from the Kamloops Indian Residential School who are buried in the cemetery on the Kamloops Reserve.
No, I did not. I really don't know much about this topic. I'm here to learn.
So if you did hear that there's a cemetery and if there were bodies buried in the Kamloops apple orchard, they'd have to be plans with secret burials because there's no real reason for them to be there. Does that get you to move more towards the agreement?
Probably, I'm already like skeptical.
Yeah, so like this is exactly the kind of thing that we're doing. And as well, the other argument that's put forward that you hear is that there's no parent has said that their child never came home from the residential school. So the likelihood of clandestine burials is somewhat, unclear because who would those children be? You need to have a parent saying, hey, my child, went to school and didn't come home and I was afraid to tell the police because, X, Y, Z, but that's not, we never had one parent saying that. So we're trying to figure out, anyway. So in terms of making you move more towards the neutral, more towards the slightly disagree, thinking it's not a hoax, what kind of evidence would you need?
Well, first you need to excavate it to actually show proof. And then apart from that, I also would like to see if they can figure out, of course, what did the kids that die from? Because if it's disease, I'm not going to call that malicious. Everyone died of disease back. If there's evidence, they were beaten to death or something, then I would agree.
Okay, so we had excavations at Kamloops, and there was some indications that there were remains in the excavation. Which mat would you move to? You move to the neutral? And why would you move to the neutral?
Just because now, I want to know more details. How exactly did they die? Over what period of time did this all happen at? And then more, why weren't they reported? Why were they just thrown here when you have a grave size?
Exactly. Other things that you think should be said?
Well, I think if you want reconciliation, you need truth. And sometimes truth, doesn't fit your narrative they try and push. Sometimes it's ugly. That's my opinion.
And this is supposed to be the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation. So you think this would be kind of an activity that this center would really want to see happen?
Well, I think, if you know that you are right, with those records, then release everything. Prove that you are wrong. Don't just bang your drum there.
Yep.
Because that doesn't add anything. I think, I was kind of angry, but you took other people, you set them to the side, and then they saw one side, bang, 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 no conversation. Then they saw you and everyone else here having one. They'll go to your side. Because your side was the only one that actually presented evidence and points, and looks more reasonable.
What do you think about the fact that the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation is keeping the records, not allowing the public to see the records?
Yeah, some truth. I guess it's called their truth, not real truth.
So you think that's a bit suspicious that they don't just want to release these records so that the public can have access to them?
Yeah, well, not even take away suspicion. If your whole movement is called Truth and Reconciliation, you need to have truth, such as documents, evidence, everything. And if you hide something, that's not the truth.
Exactly. You need the whole truth. And sometimes the truth is just partial, and then you find another document and changes your perspective on some particular question. Anyway, thank you so much for participating. That's really great. All right. Any other takers for the start to shoot this one? Okay.
I'm going to start a race with strongly say some time.
Okay, save the time. Okay, then this is in response to the claim the Greater Kamloops was a hoax.
Yep.
You're on the strongly agreeing that.
And my reason for believing that is because Roseanne Casimir, on June 4th, a week after the announcement, said there's no mass graves. She clarified there are supposed to be separate graves, okay? A month later, she filed a resolution at AFN, Resolution 1/2021, saying that a mass grave of deceased children has been found, and that more mass graves will be found. Well, that's a contradiction, and I think that's where the hoax really is.
Okay, so that I thank you so much for raising that piece of evidence, because I'd actually kind of forgotten about that situation, and I'm wondering about my own because I moved to the neutral. I'm definitely now on the neutral on this West. It's that piece of information.
I'll throw another bit at you. Okay, within a day after the May 27, 2021 announcement, a group of lawyers filed a complaint with the ICC, International Criminal Court, accusing Canada of genocide, of concealing the graves, a mass grave that is, of their deceased children, and that more mass graves would be found. Not only that, they accused the RCMP, the Government of Canada, and the Vatican, I kid you not, of trying to conceal this truth, trying to conceal the graves.
Yeah, I was worried about that, but in terms of that Casimir motion, that was July. It was right. It was like July 6th or something.
Yeah. So I think 7th and 8th, the special meeting of the AFN.
So in terms of the person who would be like more over towards this side, what do you think would be the best argument that they would have for saying that that's not really an indication of the hoax?
Why did Rose Casimir contradict herself that way? She publicly announces to the nation that there is no mass graves, and then she passes a resolution with the FN saying there are mass graves. I don't know how do you explain that.
Perhaps I'm just thinking of the best argument that can be made about that is just like not really being very specific with your language. Right, they kind of have it a bit, and Sean Carlton, who I've mentioned many times here today, who is an embarrassment to the University of Manitoba. That guy, he kind of slips in and out of this language all the time, right? Like unmarked graves, mass grave, like it's like, and in fact he even talks. So I'm not sure if you know this or not, but there are records of 49 deaths associated with the Kamloops Indian Residential School.
I thought it was 51 actually.
It's a double counting, so it's 49. So 49 like names of children who were associated, not like 25 didn't die at the school, they died in hospitals, they died in their home communities and so on. But Carlton, for example, confuses that situation with the Kamloops clandestine burial apple orchard kind of place. So maybe he's being disingenuous or not, but I sort of like maybe he just gets confused about it.
Yeah, I can't.
So let's say that Rose Casimir, she's just not very specific with her language, and she just isn't thinking about these things very much. And so she does sort of rouse off this thing, and she's not intending to do that. She's just confused.
But isn't that being casual about a blood libel against Canada?
It is, but it's not necessarily a hoax.
I think it is.
So, but have you heard that somehow some documents came out, like her diary or something like that, which show that she was generally confused about the situation? Would that get you to move to the agreed position?
No.
No? Why not?
I want to see excavations. I want to see the criminal evidence. And I'll remind the audience that unlawful burial is a crime in Canada. So if there's any substance to the truth that there are like 215 children buried somewhere, unlawfully buried, the police have a duty to investigate. Now, the band actually approached the police, the local detachment about this. They did not present the police with any forensic evidence, that is, actual remains found. There's no open graves of any bodies anywhere for the police to see. They also don't have a single name of anyone reported missing from the school. Who are these children? So the police have no evidence to actually get a warrant to dig up the ground.
And as well, you know about Murray Sinclair. You hear about Murray Sinclair?
Sorry? Oh, the interference?
Yeah, he interfered with the police investigation.
I don't buy that personally.
No. When
There was no police investigation. There can't be. They have no grounds to proceed.
Well, you think that because of the types of doubts and everything, and all the kinds of people being really worried about it, like it in another context, you might have seen them move on the issue.
I understand that they will have a public relations commitment to clarify to the public, but in terms of criminal investigation, they have not been presented with any evidence to receive a warrant of any kind.
Yeah, and it's true. They haven't been very good in terms of clarifying to the public that there really are no grounds for them to proceed.
Yeah, that's fair.
And that's because of presumably kinds of political pressure that have put on them.
Quite possibly. The whole issue is radioactive, as we saw earlier.
Well, we stood our ground and we argued it out, and here we are, still standing. No one got hauled away in handcuffs or anything like that, so no one got hit, really, like someone got hit with a drone instrument, accidentally.
And I would suggest to these safety inspectors here, in fact I asked one, don't they have a sound meter to count how many decibels? Because there is a certain level where it becomes damaging to hearing.
I think that was damaging higher.
Yeah, that's considered assault, I believe. Oh, let's ask that guy.
But, I think it was borderline. See, the thing is, they didn't want to ask, we wanted to have this take place. We didn't want, within reason, everyone was kind of not particularly, they didn't go crazy. Everyone was kind of controlled. It's kind of controlled opposition.
Yeah.
So, and it was all good.
Yeah, everything worked pretty well.
Anything else you think should be said?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Anyone else who wants to participate? Okay. So we have two rules to start in the Street Epistemology. One is you start on the neutral. The other is you can't straddle the mass. You gotta pick your mass. Okay. So let's go get you on the neutral. You have a claim that you would like to investigate.
The claim of you spewing hate against residential school survivors. I am a fourth-generation residential school grandchild of my grandparents.
So the claim is Francis Widdowson is spewing hate against residential school survivors.
Yes.
Okay, so where would you be on that claim?
I do strongly.
Okay, you're going to be on strongly agree? And I'm going to be on the strongly disagree map. And I wish I had my gear. I have some great things for this. They are, Peter Boghossian does this, but I'm not very prepared today to hold it. The chaos. What you do is you write down on this board what you think the best argument of the opposition would be in response. Well, we don't have that yet. But so let's just do it this kind of regular. Why do you think that I am spewing hate against residential school survivors?
The reason I think it is watching the live in the beginning when you first came in here, before I walked into class, is that there is history along with Indigenous residential schools and graves that were found first in British Columbia, then so on and so forth. My own community has unmarked graves in it. The fact that you're trying to spew that this hate and against residential school survivors really makes me mad, but in a respectful way to you, because the seven sacred teachings taught me to value your opinion, taught me to love you, taught me to respect you and your decisions. And I want to know and I want to hear you on why you think these claims are not real.
Okay, so there's two issues here. One is the claims that I make about the residential schools. The other one is whether these claims are hateful. So do you have a preference? Do you want to pursue one of those or another?
Let's try to pursue them both.
Okay, so let's do the claim before we get into the hate, because one depends on the other.
It does, yeah.
If you kind of understand why I would think the things that I do you might not think it was hate in the end. So, okay, so I'm just trying to think about the claim that we're looking at, which is, so my area is the Kamloops case. So I would argue that I strongly disagree that the remains of 215 children have been found at the Kamloops Indian Residential School in the apple orchard. Is that the kind of claim you're talking about?
Yes.
And I would be on the strongly disagree, which is the remains of 215 children have been found at the Kamloops Indian Residential School. I strongly disagree that that's the case. And the reason for that is because ground penetrating radar and the views of the knowledge keepers are the only pieces of evidence that we have for remains of 215 children being found. And the Kamloops Indian Band said in 2024 that it was anomalies on the GPR, not remains. So they changed the wording from remains to not. So they aren't even really arguing that anymore.
Yeah.
So that's my view.
Okay. I respect your view. I really do. But at the same time, our knowledge keepers, my knowledge keepers, strongly believe, and there's spirits that walk around, the lost children of the 250 on the Kamloops ground who don't know their way home because of what happened within the residential schools there. It's a very dark chapter within Canadian history, within Indigenous people, when we look back at colonization within the residential schools and the way they were designed to kill the Indian and the child. I strongly believe that those remains are there, and there's a reason why they brought out the penetrating sonar there, and they won't bring them back up because it's disrespectful to those children who passed away from sickness.
Okay, so, and this is the method of shape. This is Peter Boghossian. He does. I just want what you try to do when you're so you don't mischaracterize someone's views. You try to repeat back to them what you think that their arguments are. So one of the arguments I thought I heard was because the knowledge keepers believe that there's 215 children buried in the Kamloops apple orchard, that's why you believe that there are children buried there.
Yes, I believe that the knowledge keepers don't lie. The knowledge keepers are one of the strongest people within the Indigenous community. They carry knowledge from past ancestors going way back to residential school.
Okay. Is it possible for a knowledge keeper to misremember things?
No.
Never?
Never.
So if a knowledge keeper says something, whatever it is, you must believe it because they're never wrong.
No. I believe that the knowledge keepers are there for a reason, and that's why the Creator gave them those gifts. And I do believe they're in the right spot to say what they believe. And with the lost 250 at the residential school case in Kamloops.
Okay, what happens if you have knowledge keepers who are in disagreement about, let's say you had one knowledge keeper who said that they believe that there are 215 children buried there, and another knowledge keeper said, no, I don't believe that's the case. What would happen then?
There's disagreements in everyday life, but at the same time, the knowledge keepers of Kamloops versus knowledge keepers of the Long Plains First Nations have different views on the way they see things. And I will always stand by the knowledge keepers of Kamloops.
Okay, now, so we looked at my view as to why I don't believe there's 250 children buried there. Do you think that that's hateful for me to believe that?
Yes, in a way it is hateful, but there's also a way of you saying it. I believe that words go a long way with Indigenous people, and I'll always respect your views on residential schools, but I'll always respectfully disagree with you.
Okay, but with this, well, whether they're hateful, like I'm not quite sure, like if I am giving these reasons to you, is there a way I can say that which would make you say that's not hateful, and a way I would say that would make you say it is hateful? I'm just trying to figure, because I don't want to sound hateful.
No, of course. The way you present, the way you say that there is no physical remains in the ground is the way of a Muniash person. Muniash in Ojibwe means white. And white Muniash people like yourself have your views in the way you guys were raised versus the way Indigenous people were raised.
Okay, but is the way, I think you said white, I guess, does that, the way that a white person characterizes, does that got something to do with hate, or is it just a different viewpoint?
It's a different viewpoint.
But in terms of hate, how does it become hate?
It becomes hate when you come onto a university campus, when the university tells you no, and wait till November. Because of right now, this is the week of to remember residential school survivors. There's always a time and place.
But the main reason was the charging of $2,000 to $5,000.
You got.
So, no, they wanted to charge my organization between $2,000 and $5,000. And my own perspective was, I should really be here in Truth and Reconciliation Week because the university is not facilitating an intellectual discussion about the residential schools. That was my own position. If we're going to talk about truth, we need to have perspectives which have contrary viewpoints. Otherwise, it's just you're hearing the same position over and over again.
I agree with you, but at the same time I disagree because this is a subject where residential school survivors were hurt the most, and we're talking about the sexual abuse, the neglect, and the way that the Christianity made the Indigenous residential school.
So in terms of the Kamloops case, if an Aboriginal person heard that 215 children were buried clandestinely in the apple orchard, do you think that that would be upsetting and hurtful to them?
Yes.
So wouldn't it be helpful to sort of say that there's a little bit of uncertainty about it?
No.
And why is that?
Because the proof is there when they did the sonar and the knowledge keepers came out.
Okay, do you think the ground penetrating radar provides evidence of remains?
In a way it does, yes. It doesn't show the whole picture, it'll only show what the anomaly is there. Nobody wants to unbury a child that was sitting there for how many years at that Kamloops residential school?
Yeah, but if we have the anomalies could be rocks or animal burrows, like that's a very, very possible scenario with ground penetrating radar.
It is, but at the same time the anomalies show where the 215, and that's where they counted out how many children were buried under there. There's no possible way for 250 animals to be buried underneath right behind a residential school.
Okay, but and the reason why you think there's 215 is because the knowledge keepers have said that that's the case.
Yes.
So what about the fact that no one was really saying the number 215 until we had the ground penetrating radar find the anomalies of 215?
Because the knowledge keepers went to chiefing council where they came from, and they believed, and they took time to go into a ceremony and ask Creator for guidance on finding these children and to bring them home.
Okay. I'm just trying to think. So this is kind of the interesting thing about street epistemology is you reach points where we're trying to get, so from what I understand, you reach points where it becomes harder and harder to kind of figure out how we can kind of figure out on evidence. So what evidence would result in you being less certain than your strongly agreed position?
Nothing.
So the evidence is not going to change your mind. So let's say they did do excavations and they found that there were no remains there. Would that change your position?
Maybe.
Okay.
but not strongly, because nobody would want to excavate where 215 children remain. It's disrespectful.
So, do you know that in, I think it was January 2022, the 13 family heads decided that they would exhume the children's bodies so that those bodies would be sent home.
I did not hear about that.
Yeah, that was in the Fifth Estate program on February 2022. So, why would they do that if they felt that there should be no disturbing of remains?
I honestly, I disagree with that family who wants to do it, because they want to bring home their children, their ancestral children. But it shouldn't be that way. It should just be leave them there, do a ceremony to bring them home, guide them, and let the elders who survived that residential school in Kamloops do it, because that's the only, I believe that's the only way of bringing them back to Creator.
Okay, so in terms of our conversation that we've had, so do you understand my position? What my position is?
Yeah, I do.
So just so that because I'd like to kind of respond if it's inaccurate, but what do you think my position is on this claim?
I think you have your position, and you will stand in it, and you'll fight for what you believe and the ways that you were raised to believe residential schools, and nobody will ever change your minds on it, not even Indigenous people.
But if we did do excavations in that area and remains were found, do you think that I would change my position?
I would hope so.
I would definitely move. I would move to the neutral position, because that would be the evidence that I would say, now we've got a whole new thing happening here and I don't know what's going on there. I'd have to, we'd start doing the forensics and everything on it. So, do you think that I'm being truthful when I say that?
No, unfortunately.
You don't?
No.
You don't think I would move if there were excavations done and remains were found?
I don't believe if they found remains there, I don't believe you change your position, because in your heart it's full of hate. You could tell by just this audience here. You could tell your heart is full of hate.
How do you
don't want to believe, and you're making up hoaxes like this. You know, there's so many of our people that have been buried, that have been murdered by priests, nuns, you name it. They've been murdered. They have people that have found graves, and you will not change your heart. He won't change his heart, because you guys believe in a system where your heart is corrupted, your heart is broken. Our hearts are broken. Every human being that's standing here has a broken heart. We see our people being drug addicts. We see your people, all drug addicts. All people are drug addicts. Yeah, I'm not saying you're not a Canadian. Did I say you're
Oh no, you're going different people.
everyone, every nationality, okay? I'm talking about nationality.
Okay, but I just want
But our nationality has been targeted the most.
But I want you to
in this
take
country.
like this has been sort of said, is that because I argue that there's no evidence for the remains of children being found at Kamloops, that's a hateful statement. People are saying that. Is that what you would claim?
What? That you've been hateful?
Yeah, if I say that there's no evidence for...
Whoever wants to dig it up. Is anyone digging it up?
Well,
Did you go dig it up?
there were $12.1 million that were allocated to dig up that area.
Well, I don't know what these politicians are doing.
Well, it's the Kamloops Indian Band.
I believe it's true. I believe it's true. I believe they're hiding and covering shit up. I believe they're covering it up.
I don't know.
It's a cover up. It's a cover up. So the Catholicism Catholic Church is covering up their asses. They don't want their priests known as pedophiles, rapists, murderers. They don't want that exposed.
Why wouldn't the Kamloops Indian Band want to figure that out? Don't they want to put that area raised to account?
Of course they do, but what are you going to do when they have their own people suffering for other things? They got other priorities right now.
But they got the $1.1 million to figure it out.
Well, that doesn't matter. Money don't matter.
But if they wanted to figure it out, they have the money to figure it out.
Yeah, and maybe
And
they
they'll
will
do
get to, maybe they will get to that.
Well,
But
it was supposed to be
right
done
now
between
they-
2021 and 2023.
Well, I can't explain for them.
Okay.
All I can explain is that your heart's broken. Your heart's broken.
Okay, but
And we have to.
why do you think that my heart is broken?
I don't know you.
But you said it was.
It is. It is. Every human being has a broken heart. Don't you have a broken heart? Have you ever had something happen to you, traumatizing to your? Huh?
Is that the idea of original sin?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's all original sin. It's all.
So
We got hate.
You agree with some Catholic things?
No, I don't.
But not all.
Well, not all of it. Not what's going on in the Catholicism thing today. I don't believe. I'm not a Catholic. I believe in Jesus Christ. I read my Bible every day. I talk about the Lord every day. I smoke. I'm struggling. You know, I'm not perfect. I'm not a perfect human being, but I'm doing the best I can for my family. I got 9 children. I got a wife and 9 children. You know, I do the best I can. I'm sober. I'm not drunk. I'm not a drunkard. I'm not a drug addict. I'm not anything like that. But what I'm saying is, if they got the money for that, then they'll eventually get to digging it up, right? So.
Not necessarily.
How do you know?
Well, I don't, but if they haven't done it in 4 years and they got the money to do it between 2021 and 2023, it seems...
Maybe they're looking at
Yeah, but
people that they're looking
But if they think it's a priority, like they hold those nuns and priests to account for what they've done, which I would have thought they would want to do.
How many priests have gone to jail?
Well, if they found remains, then that could be a huge piece of evidence to make their case.
Well, then this is good for you pushing them to do something about it.
I am pushing them to do something about it because we want to get to the truth. That's the only way we're going to get to the truth. But do you think that that's for me say we should really get to the truth of this matter? Do you think that's hateful?
No, but I'm just saying, like, you're coming across as hateful. Like,
Am I?
Well, you started here a protest earlier. And it seems like Peter, we're dropping off.
I got a professor to book some rooms for me, or try to book rooms for me. They're going to charge my organization between $2,000 and $5,000 to do it, and my organization doesn't have that kind of money. So I said, well, I'm going to come in and do the Spectrum State Epistemology instead. And it seems to me to be fitting because this is about the truth-telling. And we're only getting the views of Sean Carlton and Negan Sinclair here. And we need other views for people to be able to truly communicate. And we're not in. And like, I'm happy to have people, everyone communicate.
I want to quote something from late Murray Sinclair. Late Murray Sinclair said it's not up to the indigenous people to teach the white people residential schools and what happened. It's up for the indigenous people to heal from it and learn from it and change it. I'm not here today to tell you, to try to educate you. I'm here to stand alongside my late grandfather who passed away recently, but went through the residential school system. And I do believe that you can change if there is hard proof, but also want to quote Charlie Kirk. In the Bible verses, Mrs. Kirk said that when Jesus got hanged on the cross, he said, forgive them, Lord, for they don't know what they do. And I'm here today to tell you that I forgive you from whatever hate that you have in your heart, and to always go with it in a respectful way.
But why do you think I have hate in my heart? I don't understand. I'm a professor. I'm very depressed about the University of Manitoba because I don't think it's doing its academic duty, and so I want to help the universities, and that's why I'm here. I don't see that that's got anything to do with hate.
But it is.
How so?
You don't realize what you're saying. These graves are a hoax.
No, it's a question mark. It's a question mark.
You don't have any evidence to even put that on there as a...
I'm saying some people are saying, I don't think it's a hoax. And I just explained, because I don't think people are intentionally trying to mislead people in the most part. There might be the odd person who's doing it, but I don't think that's the major dynamic that's going on.
Yeah.
So, but some people are saying it is a hoax.
Indigenous people are saying that's a hoax.
Some are saying that it's a hoax, and some non-Indigenous people are saying it's a hoax.
Yeah, just like the Queen coming here, stealing some kids and taking them King Charles.
Yeah, so this is the at the Kamloops University, the Queen abducting 10 children claim.
Yeah.
So do you think
that? I heard about that.
Billy Coons?
I don't know nothing about it. I can't speak on
No.
it. Like, I wasn't there.
The Queen wasn't in Kamloops in 1964, so it would have been hard for her to abduct the children.
Oh, I wasn't there.
But this is the kind of the claim that's being made. So that's what we do at the university is we look at the evidence.
I'm not in university. I went to grade 5. That's all I went to grade 5.
But you're here and you're arguing your points.
Yeah, well, I believe it's true. I believe it's true.
That
the children are buried there. There's some children that didn't make it home.
And now, why do you believe that?
They might have been adopted out. They might have been murdered. They might have been killed because they found some in Saugeen, some graves in Saugeen.
But in terms of Kamloops, why do you believe that children are buried in the orchard of the Kamloops Residential School?
I believe is because they had something on the news where they said the Queen took 10 kids and one guy who was supposed to testify against them ended up going, he died before they even
Billy
got
Coons,
to
it was Billy Coons.
Billy Coons.
Yeah, but
the people who are from Manitoba that were in that residential school, but I mean, for my family, I can't say anything about it because my aunt said that there was nothing bad that happened to her there. Like, people were nice to her, like the nuns were nice to her, but I think some people did have it hard to where they were being raped and having kids. And
well, it's like the sexual abuse, like that was documented. There's a task force that was investigating this in the 1990s in British Columbia. So there is evidence of sexual abuse. What I'm talking about is the remains of 215 children in Kamloops, whether that is got any evidence.
Wasn't there evidence found on some paper that saying there was bodies found there and they did dig?
No, it was, there's no excavations that have taken place there, and it's GPR, it's the ground penetrating radar, was the anomalies on that. But if you know ground penetrating radar, and I've been on, I've done work with GPR people, an anomaly is just can be a boulder. It can be an animal burrow. It's not clear what is beneath the soil when you have an anomaly. It has to be excavated.
Try find.
Well, this is what people say.
Because they're saying some people didn't make it home and some kids didn't make it home. Like, a lot of, I gotta say, for a lot of residential school survivors came out mean to where some of us as their children were denied, and people were mean to us growing up. People treated us like garbage. Like, I had my family come here and they're causing chaos. And then I'm wondering, why are they causing chaos when, they're just as mean as anybody else, this meanness needs to stop. And
but I think we did
where you lost your job because you did something, or you said something which offended some people that were being racial, it's like people are always being racially profiled. And this, profiling and saying, oh, you're lying. How do you know as a person that they're lying about that,
How do you know it's a hoax?
Yeah, how do you know?
I don't think it's a hoax.
It's not a hoax. Like, for some.
It's a question mark.
But I mean, some of us, like,
a lot of people are saying it's a
live
hoax.
with these people, and some of them tried all the time. And there's some sitting on the corner. I met this 77-year-old lady. She has no family. She sits on the corner in St. Boniface. And she can't find any of her family. Like, she's just by herself. And she was in residential school. I should have brought her here.
But this is a different question than about the Kamloops situation, which is
you're just mad because you lost your job, but everybody wants to wait now.
I'm not happy about losing my job.
But more hate towards everybody because we do get treated like garbage.
No, we had a great.
And I see you guys like fighting on the videos. It's causing more hate.
You're talking. We're discussing things.
Yeah, it looked like you guys were ready to go at each other on the videos I was watching. I'll come running here.
Leave everything on TV.
we had a great situation. All I'm saying is that I appreciate everything that they're saying. I don't have any, I seriously do not have hate in my heart. I know, but we're at a university. Universities are about truth-seeking and following evidence.
But you're just mad because you lost.
No, I'm not happy about. I'm not happy about losing my job. No, I'm not. But does that it wasn't? It's got nothing to do with why I'm here. I'm here to defend the universities. If we don't save our universities, it's over.
You need to go help somebody, you know.
We need to help the University of Manitoba. University of Manitoba is a complete disaster. And it needs a serious kick in the butt, and that's what I'm doing. I'm kicking it in the butt.
But you're kicking it?
No, I'm not. I'm not. You guys, people think that, and if they're wrong, they should change their minds.
Look, you're saying the university needs, you're doing it to the university, but you're doing it to Native people by saying it fell.
I'm not saying it's all die.
Think about what you're talking about, and
I'm saying it's a
the Bible says, examine your heart.
I have examined my heart.
No, you haven't.
I have.
Obviously.
I have. No, I'm trying to discuss this claim, which people do. Anyway, I really appreciate you guys coming by. I think it's great. I think you're coming. I am pulling my heart. I am, but it's because people are saying, oh, you guys gotta. This is what people are saying.
Some people didn't have it hard.
Anyway, what time are we like on here? Okay, am I still going here? All right, I think we've had a pretty good event here today. I really appreciate everyone that came. We had a little bit of clash of things, but everyone kind of calmed down, and we heard some great things. We heard some true positions where people were saying, this is what I believe, and they're explaining why they believe that. And I think we did understand a lot, which is knowledge keepers are very important to some people, the views of knowledge keepers. Whereas some people don't think knowledge keepers' views should be just taken as evidence. You need to have corroborating evidence. You can't just accept the knowledge keepers. So anyway, we're going to be at the University of Winnipeg tomorrow at 2 p.m. Central. And the claim is residential school denialism is a barrier to reconciliation. Because Negan Sinclair is going to be on some program where he's going to be arguing that. And I'd like to counter his claims or have people who support those claims. So thank you very much, everyone who came out. I think we've had some pretty good discussions.
Good music.